I'm Rachel. I'm one of the F1 doctors working at QMC. And the project I've been working on during the year is the provision of a safe face-to-face teaching program for final year medical students during COVID. So a bit about the background. So COVID has changed so much, but from a medical education point of view, there's a reduction in face-to-face teaching sessions, redeployment of clinical teachers back to practice, reduction in student presence, and then that has led to reduced teaching opportunity on the wards for junior doctors, which has then led to them struggling to reach their curriculum outcomes. So in F1 and F2, it is a mandatory outcome to engage in teaching to pass ARCP. And it's also hindered just kind of developing general just interest in medical education. So a bit about the aim. So it was to create a safe face-to-face teaching environment, to provide a platform for doctors to gain teaching experience, to enable doctors to gain feedback, and then also create a beginner's guide to designing a new program for future doctors who want to get involved in teaching. So a bit about the methods. So we decided to go with timed clinical stations. So there was 4 sessions every 5 weeks, so every rotation of students, basically. And there was 6 stations in each session, which could be attended by 6 students. And the doctors were asked to design, create, and design the marking scheme and everything for their own stations. And they ran out of hours in the weekday evenings, and they were optional sign-ups for the students. And then they ran kind of similar to an OSCE, kind of mock OSCE scenario. So how did we recruit people? So students were recruited via sign-up links that were sent out by email. In the beginning, it took a couple of days for them to fill up, and we were thinking, oh, I don't know whether this is wanted. But as we got closer to exams and the word spread, they were literally booking out within a couple of minutes. So it became quite popular. Doctors to run the sessions were recruited via WhatsApp, social media groups, email, Facebook, word of mouth. And then at NUH, there's the junior doctor briefing, and we advertised it there. And then everyone who was interested was added to a WhatsApp group where we did all the rest of the communication, gathered doctor availability and chose the dates which best suited the most doctors. Then how do we stay safe? So with it being face-to-face, this is really important. We needed to create a world where if one student or doctor became positive, that it wouldn't take everybody out of placement and work. So, you know, if we have one student that was positive, that would take them, all of their housemates out, the other 5 and all of their housemates. And then given junior doctors who all live with housemates, you'd have 6 to 12 doctors taken out. So we would rapidly, single-handedly be depleting the junior doctor and medical student workforce of NUH. So the way to avoid it was limiting the number to 6. Everyone remained socially distanced and had appropriate PPE. And each session had a kind of leader coordinator who made sure everyone was going to where they needed to be. And then anyone who was showing symptoms or identified as a contact was asked to just stay home. And we made sure that they could join into a later session. And in the end, we had to add a couple of sessions to facilitate everyone. But that was fine, you know, and it worked out okay. And then teaching assessments. So we had an amazing group of teaching fellows who came to all the sessions to provide feedback and teaching assessments for the doctors. And this was like such a huge incentive for the program. It really got doctors involved. As I said, it is a mandatory outcome for us. So that was really good. And they helped to assist with certificate provision as well. So a bit about the results. So 95 students took part altogether. All of them strongly agreed that the session was well organised, met the objectives, was aimed at an appropriate level, and that the feedback was constructive and informative. They all agreed the tutors were approachable, that the learning environment was open, and they felt more confident in performing under exam conditions and would recommend the session. And then this is what was done well. So just kind of a random assortment of the comments that the students left on the kind of free text box. One of the common ones which came up, which a lot of people mentioned, was the practicing things like breaking bad news, DNA CPR discussions and end of life, as well as prescribing. I think those are the things that they missed out a bit on with the virtual teaching. So they're all quite positive about that. Then what could be improved? So a common theme was asking for examination stations. So the way we ran it was kind of up to teacher discretion whether they felt comfortable doing an examination station. If they did, there was PPE, we had a room for it, but we didn't kind of make anyone do it because it is quite up close and personal. So it depended on the session really, whether a doctor had decided to do it or not. And also more time for feedback would have been nice, was a common theme that people said. In the beginning, we followed kind of strict exam scenario, but as the sessions went on, we kind of started adding more time and adapting a bit to what the students wanted. And then just a bit about the teacher feedback. So about half the doctors completed the feedback. 90% strongly agreed or agreed that they felt more confident in their teaching abilities and that the session improved their own medical knowledge, and that 85% of doctors had a teaching assessment completed, and 83% said the programme made them newly consider a career in medical education, which is great. And then this graph here just shows that most people came to between 1 and 5 sessions. A small group came to 6 to 10, and then a small group came to more than 10. And this is just some more comments that were left by the doctors. And again, the more time for feedback was actually quite a common theme for them as well. And then finally, for the guide, the Junior Doctor's Beginner Guide to Designing a Teaching Program, basically. So I'll just go through them briefly. So choose a topic that's in demand. There was a lot of online teaching going on at the time, and felt like this was the way to go. Use social media and group chats. So the response rate from emails wasn't great in the beginning, but there's a group chat for everything. So get your ideas out there. 3, 4, and 5 kind of go together. So have a minimum commitment clause. For doctors, hold off on supplying certificates until the end, and hold off on supplying certificates until they've all given feedback. So we gave a certificate to everyone who came at the end of the session. So we ended up a lot of people took the certificate, ran, it didn't give feedback, and towards the end we struggled to get the numbers to run the sessions. As I said, if possible, get some senior doctors and teaching fellows involved. It's a great way to get doctors involved as well. And when it comes to sticking to exam conditions, having more time for feedback was a lot more important than the strict exam emulation. Have a small bank of backup stations or backup scenarios or whatever kind of program you're doing. It wasn't actually uncommon for people to turn up just with nothing but want to take part. So it would be good to have some backups for that. And then finally, make a committee and delegate the workload, which is another thing we didn't really do, actually. I think we probably did too much myself, and it did end up being quite a lot of big time commitment. So I would say if I was doing it again, try to delegate, especially if you're doing a bigger program. But yes, that's it. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks to the undergraduate department for hosting us and for all their help.